You are cleared to enter. Welcome to Pizza Planet.
Welcome to Pizza Planet,
a Pixar podcast.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Gareth.
And we're your delivery guys.
Bringing you a square box of round, hot, cheesy Pixar goodness.
We've got a bounty of slices in today's feast, so let's dig in. Thank you for calling Pizza Planet. Today's special is on
Pixar Soundtracks.
Woo!
Oh, yeah. We're going to be listening to some sweet, sweet tunes.
all the musica.
But because of copyright reasons, we will not be listening to them on the podcast. We actually just are going to be talking about them with a very special guest today.
Yes. So today we have our good friend Tony Zinich with us.
Hey.
So Tony Zinich is a good friend of Ben and I's. He is a musician, which is the predominant reason we brought him on. But he actually has experience scoring films for Ben and I, because Ben and I have worked on some short films together, and Tony has written music for that. So we thought he was especially qualified to have some deep discussions about movie soundtracks.
Yes, we're going to be picking your brain, buddy.
I'll do my best.
So we're going to be doing top 5 soundtracks today, and to kick things off, first of all, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty swell.
Pretty good, yeah. It's Easter weekend, so
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
Yeah, and Tony,
Yes, sir.
what excites you the most about being on the podcast today?
To see your faces instead of just hearing your voices.
Oh yeah,
I love seeing how excited you guys get about Pixar in general. So we've already talked for like a couple minutes.
yeah, that's true.
And just, I don't know, you just like light up when you start talking about Pixar. So yeah.
Is there anything you want our audience to know before we start the discussion about you specifically?
Absolutely not.
Okay, he's a mystery.
That's right.
Well, I told Tony before this that, when we first started talking about like doing soundtracks and, our top 5 and stuff, we immediately thought of Tony.
Yeah.
And we've been like reeling him in because Tony told us that he's basically been like binging Pixar films the past like month or two with your fiance.
That's right. Yeah, you got me hooked. You gave me the Pixar bug.
Yes.
I've seen all of them but 2 in the last probably 2 months. So yeah, I'm going ham.
I don't know why this reminded me of. You guys know that quote from Papa John's where he's like, "I've ate 40 pizzas in 30 days." You know what I'm talking about?
Hey, that's not a Pixar movie.
You know what I'm talking about? Oh, you got it. It's a hilarious quote where he's talking about like it's the whole thing, but yeah, he ate 40 pizzas in 30 days. He just says this like in some interview.
He ate 40? I thought you said he made 40 pizzas.
No.
I was like, yeah, you work at a pizza place.
No, Papa John's, he ate 40 pizzas in 30
Wow.
days, and he can tell the difference because he had to get like kicked out of the company, and so he was saying like they've changed like the recipe, and he's like, I've had 40 pizzas in 30 days. I can tell the difference. So hearing you talk about like 26 soundtracks. Anyway,
I've seen 40 Pixar movies in the last 30 days.
Wait, are there that many? No.
With shorts?
Oh yeah, maybe. Actually, with shorts, almost definitely. So to kick things off, we're all just gonna share our top 5s. We're not gonna be doing like a whole everyone go 5, everyone go 4. We're just gonna go straight into it. Ben, hit me with your top 5.
my top 5.
Yes.
I want to have Tony do the first
Okay.
top.
Oh, baby.
We'll give the honor of first share to TZ.
All right. At number 5, we have Cars 1.
Oh.
At number 4, just keep going.
Yeah.
At number 4, we have Up. Number 3, we have good old Inside Out. Number 2, Ratatouille. And number 1, the incredible Incredibles.
Ooh, very
You got
nice.
a lot of Michael Giacchino on your
Hey,
list.
baby.
Mikey Mike.
And I love that Cars is on there because that's like kind of like a dark horse as far as like Randy Newman goes. So
Yeah, nice.
sweet list, bro. Sweet
go.
list. All right, Ben, hit me with it.
Okay, so number 5, we've got Monsters Inc.
Oh yeah.
So I got to show some love to Randy Newman. Number 4, Inside Out. Number 3, Wall-E. Number 2, Up. And number 1, Finding Nemo.
Ooh, nice.
Nice. So you got a good mix of the Newmans and Giacchino there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my list starts with number 5, which is probably going to be the most dark horse of my entire list, is Turning Red.
Ooh, yeah, nice.
Then I got number 4, The Incredibles. I got a number 3, Monsters, Inc.
Nice.
Okay.
I got a number 2, Finding Nemo.
Very nice.
And my number 1 is Wall-E.
Ooh, nice.
Very nice.
So yeah, got it. I had to give some love to like Giacchino and Randy, but Thomas, man,
Dude, yeah.
So what do you guys want to talk about first? So let's see what overlaps on our list. So you had Tony, you had Incredibles
As number 1.
as number 1. That's my number 4. Was Incredibles on your list, Ben?
No, it was not.
So let's talk about that score real quick.
Ooh, all right.
Because I think that this one's noteworthy because it has kind of transcended Pixar in many ways. It's become one of those like iconic scores that you kind of like. This might be heresy to say. I kind of put it alongside like John Williams stuff, like Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, that kind of thing. Like because it's just so iconic.
Yeah.
It's like the type of soundtrack where you just play one track from it and people instantly know that it's super cinematic. It's super like, I don't know. And it takes a lot of really unique inspiration from things like the Mission Impossible theme. I wrote down the names of these people, not because I know who they are, but like I noted this to give credit where credit is due. Lalo Schifrin wrote the Mission Impossible theme. The James Bond theme, written by Monty Norman, and even the Pink Panther theme to an extent by Henry Mancini, all feel like they influenced Michael Giacchino in the soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, they definitely dig into the throwback sound, like the 60s, like big horn section sound and that like big horn theme, like dun 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 dun. That thing, like, on the horns is like, ooh, money. That is gold. Yeah, and I'm already like a brass guy. I played trombone a lot, so hearing that, like that sound, which is definitely prevalent in like those other films you were talking about.
Yeah,
it's just like, zesty.
Yeah.
Zesty, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the 60s because like the movie gives off such like a 1960s vibe and the soundtrack accentuates that so beautifully.
Yeah. And I got to say, like, so it almost made my honorable mentions, which we'll get to later. It was like right there. I was like, but I clearly need to give it a second listen. But I loved the pacing. It's just like quick, you know. It's like keeps you guessing, and it's just like fun, and that really it's perfect for the movie because the movie is very fast paced with the characters and the superpowers and stuff. I just loved that part to it.
Yeah, this was one of the, other than like maybe my top 3, but this is definitely the most listened to-able soundtracks all the way through. Like every track I found interesting, which was not the case with some of them on lower on my list or things that didn't make my list. Was just as a soundtrack without the film, I would listen to it because it's so interesting all the way through.
Oh yeah. So like fun fact, like I remember back when I was in high school, like my cousin in Montana telling me that because he was in jazz band and he was telling me that they did for jazz band like a medley of the Incredibles soundtrack.
Oh, nice.
And just instantly that just made sense to me. Like of course you would do that in jazz band, like because it's that iconic and like you're saying, like literally every track slaps. There's nothing that isn't picking up slack and help carrying the weight of the movie. So it's like a very all-encompassing like soundtrack. Like it's whole. It's very whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's like lots of interesting instruments like used in it too, you know?
Yeah, the marimba.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, the marimba.
Yeah.
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 I have some standout tracks noted for this one. So The Glory Days is a great track. Life's Incredible again. It's very fun to just it's like kind of like a little jazzy, like easy listening vibe. Chronos Unveiled. It hits hard. I've been actually seeing this one pop up a lot on TikTok. And then I never realized this is what it's called, but the credits song in The Incredibles is actually called the In Credits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And that one just kind of like highlights all of it. So
Yeah.
What's the track called? I did not have highlight tracks,
Oh, okay.
but I'm looking it up as we speak.
Oh, okay.
The one where Dash, it either introduces Dash or it's where he's running on water.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's called 100 Mile Dash.
Yeah.
And I think it's the one that starts with a marimba or a flute or something. It's like, and it has this like little like roll on a high marimba note or something. And it's just this, it's such a good Incredibles sound. Signature sound.
Yeah. What was the one you said, that your first one that you said? Highlight track?
The Glory
Glory
Days,
Days.
Life's Incredible, or Chronos Unveiled,
Yeah, I think it was Life's Incredible.
or Life's Incredible again, I guess is what it's
Again, yeah, that one doesn't it have kind of like this kind of
called.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
So good.
like an old what am I thinking of, like a
Rat Pack kind of vibe.
yeah, like I'm thinking of oh my gosh, the Marvel show
WandaVision?
yeah, like that, almost like
Oh, okay.
supermarket kind of vibe. Like I really like the vibe of that song.
Yeah. No, The Incredibles is 100% deserving to be your number one, Tony. I the more we talk about it, the like, do I want to reassess my list? No.
I know, yeah, like
Ben, what are you doing?
I remember listening to it and thinking like, I want to put this on my list. So yeah, I need to check it out.
Well, what else is on our list? What else do we have in common?
I want to hear what you guys liked so much about Finding Nemo.
Ooh, okay.
Oh,
Okay. So easily, for me, it's one of the most like triggering soundtracks, because when I hear like the main theme, it just like it gets me choked up. Was it 2 months ago now? We did Finding Nemo, and we did a breakdown of that movie. So you guys know how much Ben and I love that movie.
Yeah, you put it at number one.
Yes, it is our number one favorite. So the soundtrack is part of it. Like the soundtrack,
Yeah.
you can't have the rest of the movie without Thomas Newman's score. And so like kind of like what you were saying, where you can actually listen to The Incredibles just on its own functionally. Now it may not mean as much if it weren't for the movie itself, but I can still listen to the Finding Nemo soundtrack, and it just like brings these emotions that's like takes me on this journey. So
yeah.
I don't know, I love it. It does get bonus points for having Beyond the Sea by Robbie Williams at the end, which I think is a interesting, rare instance where a Pixar movie popularized an old song for a new generation, because I don't think I would know that song if it not for Finding Nemo.
Oh, that's like La Vie and Rose and Wally.
Yeah,
Louis
yeah.
Armstrong. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that Finding Nemo is my number 2 and not my number 1, simply because of Wally. So we'll talk about Wally later, but like keep that in mind. Like Finding Nemo should be like, for all intents and purposes, my number 1. It's my favorite Pixar movie.
Yeah.
And like Thomas Newman, he's just like, no joke, I will go to Thomas Newman's Spotify and just play all of his soundtracks on shuffle, and like I'm happy. Like he's just everything he does is gold. So anyways, Ben, what are your thoughts on Finding Nemo?
Yeah, couldn't agree anymore. I didn't set out for it to be my number 1 just because of the film's my number 1.
Yeah.
It just happened. Yeah, like it's so interesting. I'm sure we'll talk as we go, like the different composers and Giacchino and Thomas Newman, and like they're all so good in their own ways. Finding Nemo, similar to Up, in that like the Up soundtrack for me, in that it really makes the film. They're married to the soundtrack and the film are really tied together. So I agree with you, Gareth. There, the Finding Nemo soundtrack. Oh, it's just like it has an amazing ambiance to it.
Oh yeah.
It's very immersive. I know that's an overused word, but very immersive soundtrack. You're in the sea a lot. It's beautifully sparse, and that's something that we'll actually see as we talk about Newman. Is that his soundtracks are like they age so well because of how sparse they are. Like he'll just bring in strings and the strings will drop out, and then he'll bring in another instrument and it'll drop out, and it's like it's almost like a modern approach in a way, like stripping things down a bit, you know. And yeah, it's just such a creative soundtrack. If you just listen to the first like 4 or 5 tracks, you have this beautiful score from the beginning of the theme, and then it goes into these like little fun things like Nemo's first day of school, and it's just so creative. Yeah, it's a really incredible soundtrack, and I would say probably out of all the soundtracks, this has like the best vibes. Like I just vibe out to the soundtrack so much.
Oh yeah, because you mentioned how like immersive it is. A lot of that for me, I think, is to do with the fact that Thomas Newman is a naturally ethereal kind of composer.
Yeah.
Like everything he does, he's trying to create a atmosphere as opposed to like a catchy tune.
Right.
And so if you listen to his other movies, I feel like a lot of his like other films give off this same kind of like oceanic kind of like floating in an abyss kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But and it works in those movies, but it has never worked better than in Finding Nemo and WALL-E, which we'll talk about later. But
It is, yeah, sure.
but yeah, my standout tracks are like you mentioned the Nemo egg, which is like the main theme at the beginning. That's a
Dude,
heartstrings.
oh my gosh.
Hold on.
It's so emotional.
That's like is a like yeah, this whole soundtrack is Pixar feels. But yeah, then you got News Travels. We talked about that scene being like a very like Pixar feelsy scene. But yeah, that's track on the soundtrack slaps. Swim Down.
Oh yeah.
It's so heavy when you listen to that track.
Yeah.
And then Friends Like These, like the ending kind of like iconic bum 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 bum, like when they're in the reef at the end and there's the whole resolution period. And I think that Finding Nemo is very deserving of your number one, Ben.
yeah. I'll throw another title track in addition to the Nemo egg for me was it's just called Finding Nemo, and it's the very end of the film when when Marlin finds Nemo, and it does the same main theme at the beginning, but it's really delicate and light, and it's the tears.
It's kind of like a reprise type of thing for the whole Nemo theme, I guess. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, what else do we have in common, guys?
I think we talked about Inside Out. I think was one that was on, or at least on ours. I think.
Yeah. So Inside Out's not on my list.
Okay.
And yeah, you guys go for it.
I think reference going back to Finding Nemo real quick.
Oh, okay.
That's lower on my list, and I think it's because the lack of like major themes. Like you mentioned, he's more of like an ambient, like setting the stage like through sounds more than like here's this theme for this character, let's reference back to it. In both when I'm scoring things and when I'm listening to things, I like hearing those themes, hearing them come back later in the soundtrack, and my brain is like, oh, this character must be doing something, let me figure out what this character is doing. And I think Inside Out does that in a very like
on the nose kind of
just yeah. I think Bing Bong has a theme. Some of the feeling characters has a theme. I think I just listened to part of it this morning, but I know there's like very significant themes. I probably listened to the first 5 tracks, and that same theme came back. Maybe it's the same theme who's like for the main character, the girl. What's her name?
Riley.
Riley. Thank you. And that main theme comes back in different emotional states. So the first one's really like light, and then she's playing, and that same theme is super fast and playful, and then she gets mad, and the theme like turns to this angry thing, but it's the same theme every time.
Yeah.
And then yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you hear it, listen to the first 20 minutes of that soundtrack, you'll hear it 20 times. So it's so good. I think that's one of the most standout things. And then it's unique. Like the sounds that they're using are more playful. Whereas one of the reasons Toy Story isn't on my list is because it sounds like a lot of other scores out there. It's just like a orchestral kind of thing. You're hearing very similar songs. I feel like I could search any score and hear a song like those. And this one is not like that. There's a lot of like, I know the character's bing bong, but there's a lot of like bing bong bong bing bong kind of sounds to it that you don't hear in a lot of other movies. It's really creative and unique.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tony. That's something that Michael Giacchino does really well. Is these reoccurring themes, and that's why also I love Up, because it does the same thing, which we'll get to later. But yeah, Inside Out has that reoccurring theme that's so good. It is such a childlike soundtrack. It really embodies the like feelings of a child, and it is really creative. Like there's times in the film where it like explores this like it explores the ethereal space of the mind, but it's still like grounded with this theme. And like the I think it's the track Tears of Joy, I think, is one that's really interesting because the orchestration cuts back and it's just kind of this like really interesting light space, and then it kind of like sweeps back together. The film is amazing, and I love the instruments that's used, the mix of like orchestration and almost kind of like, I don't know if it's electronic, I don't know what you'd call it, but the instrumentation is really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that one's got like definitely like fun uses of music. Like you're not wrong. Like it's a more playful soundtrack than some other other Pixar soundtracks.
Right. Because we've been doing this as we've been going, we've been humming the theme. I have to throw out the Finding Nemo theme because it's actually really good. Do 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 do. It's sorry that I had to do it because like that theme just like hits me hard. So
well, we're talking about Inside Out now, Ben.
I know.
Why don't you do an Inside Out song?
I appreciate you throwing that back. You just singing that, I don't recognize that theme, which I think shows the difference between the two composers, like how much it's used.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I listened to it on the soundtrack and all the other sounds were going, I'd be like, oh. But you saying do 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 do.
Yeah,
like, I'm like, oh, that's the Inside Out.
Exactly.
Soundtrack.
Yeah. Exactly. He does a good job of it sticks with you.
Yeah.
I can see that. And the only part of talking about Finding Nemo again, the only part of Finding Nemo that I for sure recall there being like what you would call like a callback theme would be what Ben was talking about with the Finding Nemo track is a reprise of Nemo Egg. Yeah. So you have a theme for Nemo, and I think that there's a theme for Dory, but I honestly don't know what it is. So that's like, to your point, Tony, like I don't even remember which like melody line or what like it is that is supposed to be Dory's theme, I should say. Inside Out though is definitely great. What else did we have in common? Somebody had Monsters Inc. on their list.
Yeah, that's my number 5. Yep.
Okay, so your number 5 is my number 3. So nice. Now I have to ask, did you have any other Randy Newman tracks on your list?
Nope.
Okay, so we're in agreement. This is peak Randy Newman then.
Dude, I'm so... That sounds like really bad because Toy Story is so amazing, but I felt the same way. I was like, I really think this is his best, but like, am I off here? Like,
no, it's 100% his best. So, like, here's one of my points is every time Randy Newman, save for Cars, I don't think he did this with Cars, but every Randy Newman score comes with, one or more songs that are written by him in the voice of the characters. So like in Toy Story, you got a friend in me, and then you got I go sailing no more. And so you've got like these different tracks that are like it sung in the voices of the characters, right? Well, Randy's always the one who's singing those songs. This is the one soundtrack he did where he actually had the actors singing their song. So If I Didn't Have You is sung by John Goodman and Billy Crystal, and that's just like extra special. So I give it bonus points for that because like their rendition of it is by far the preferred version over like Randy, because Randy does his own rendition of it, but it's nowhere near as good as the Billy Crystal John Goodman version. But yeah, it just has all the hallmarks of a great Randy Newman score. But I think just because of the visual flavor of the monster world. Just the music it just hits in a particular way in the context of like this colorful monstropolis. Like it's more transportative because Toy Story just takes place in a kid's bedroom. We've all been in a kid's bedroom.
Right.
But Monstropolis is a place that none of us have actually been. So like you listen to this soundtrack, it transports you to an actual place as opposed to like just giving you like feelings of nostalgia, like looking at my toys kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it is a really creative, or a really fun soundtrack. Like I just felt like this soundtrack is it's so playful and fun, and it's jazzy. Like there's like this jazz elements to it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, my standout tracks for Monsters Inc. Obviously, if I didn't have you, that's just iconic. Monsters Inc. The main theme for Monsters Inc. Walk to Work. Boo's Going Home. So you're talking about, Tony, you were talking about like callback themes. Boo is a character who clearly has her own theme. I'm not going to try humming it because it's actually kind of high, but
Oh yeah, yeah. How does that go again?
it's like,
Do it.
it's like a that whole melody. But yeah, so you've got that song, and yeah, it's just there's so many great tracks in this one.
Yeah, it really is. The soundtrack really keeps you guessing because it's like you said with Monstropolis, it explores so many different fun elements. The scare floor has a theme, and it's really engaging. There is some notes of Toy Story that kind of come in.
Yeah.
But I think what really for me, I think that got it on my list. And this ties into your point, Tony, about having themes, is I was listening to the soundtrack and I'm thinking, I'm like, it's a playful, it's a fun soundtrack, but there was nothing that really was really drawing me to it. I mean, it's, like I said, it's really fun, but like, why should this be on my list? And it was once I heard the track Boo's Tired. And I remember that scene in the film when she starts, because it's a big character moment.
Yeah.
For Sully and Mike, and they're starting to fall in love with Boo, and that theme then comes back again throughout the film. And my second favorite track is Boo's Going Home, and it's at the end of the film, and then it's again when the very end of the film, and it just gives you the feels, man. It honestly, like, this score makes me want to cry, like 100%. Like,
Yeah,
that particular theme is so good.
Yeah, both of those tracks I highlighted because those are two of my favorites too. But yeah, any of the themes that have like Boo involved just like had that pull because that's really what her character represents, is like this paternal pull that Sully gets. And so the way Randy Newman kind of wove that into her theme, it just adds a lot of emotion when you're listening to the soundtrack, because you just like, I just want to hold a baby right now.
Does anybody have a baby?
One other highlight track. So this very nearly made my top 5 list.
Oh, okay.
And so the track "Boo is a Cube," where Sully thinks she's been killed and turned into this trash heap.
I remember it.
Cube.
It's got kind of like a bouncy, like bump 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 kind of theme.
It's so funny. Just listening to it, it's even funny because it jumps back and forth between this like super dramatic, like, oh my gosh, Sully in the movie is like passing out every time he looks at this, and it sounds like that. And then Boo in the movie is just like waltzing along with their friends, and the soundtrack does the same thing, and it's so funny. It's so well done.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
great.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot about that scene, but like I do know exactly what you're talking about, where it's like dun 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 dun, like really intense music, and then just like sweet, happy,
her skipping along.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, that's got to be like Randy Newman's, like, his thing is he's just so good at, like, you know, not only embodying characters but really making soundtracks like really fun, like, you know. But
yeah. So were there any other overlaps we had?
I think Up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You have Up?
I don't have Up.
Yeah.
feel like we
Sorry.
would like Up for the same reasons.
Oh, dude, take it away, man.
So, I recently watched Up in the last 2 weeks, probably, and this is the only film that made my list because I listened to the film only while watching the movie. The other ones that made my list, maybe with the exception of Cars, but the other ones that made my list were because I was listening to the soundtrack, and I was like, oh, I like this about the soundtrack. But Up brings those Pixar feels in big time with that piano piece. I can't sing it right now. I can't think of how it goes, but
Oh yeah,
Married Life.
yeah. And it just, that theme comes back at the most like dramatic parts of the movie, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is gonna make me cry right now. That's it, yeah. Yeah, that theme alone made that movie make my list.
Dude, 100%. Yeah, no, it's so good, man. Yeah, that I would put that in line for me with similar to Inside Out, in that it's just this thematic that, and he uses it so well throughout the film, and it's just like every time he's like crunch it in your heart a little bit more. And yeah, no, it's probably, I wrote down, the most emotional score. Of Pixar. For sure.
Well, and it's also like in today's day and age, like at least as far as the TikTok generation goes, this is probably the most iconic track. Married Life is probably the most iconic track of all Pixar, like more iconic than You've Got a Friend in Me, because it is used so versatilely with like meme culture and with like, you know, just general videos online, so it is definitely more recognizable for younger generations. So I would give it points for that, because that's not a knock on it. It's like it is that good of a song that it has transcended the movie itself and become kind of like this like universally recognized piece of music.
Where when you hear it, you just start crying, no
Yeah.
matter what's going on.
I know.
Yeah,
like it's been kind of hijacked, like you know.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, like TikTok, you know, it's like some dude is just doing a thing, but then you have the music and you're like,
it makes you care more. Like that says so much about Michael Giacchino in this soundtrack, because you're not wrong. Like somebody could literally just be showing off their new French press, making a new cup, making like a fresh cup of coffee, but they're playing Married Life over it. It's suddenly compelling.
that's so true.
But like, to be fair, like Up's not on my top 5, but it definitely deserves an honorable mention from me. To be fair, like the whole soundtrack is good. Married Life is the one track that just kind of like, in Ben's words, got hijacked. But the rest of the soundtrack is just as good.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I wrote down that this is, in my opinion, Michael Giacchino's magnum opus.
Oh, I'd agree with that. Wait,
so-
would I? I was gonna say Incredibles is in my top 5. Up is not.
Yeah, you don't have to agree with that. You're fine to disagree, but yeah, it's so good. It's you know, it's old timey. It's got that old timey charm to it. It's a very endearing score. It's clearly a love story. You know, the soundtrack itself. So yeah, the again, like Finding Nemo for me, the score makes the movie. And lastly, I would say that this score, the whole soundtrack, it perfectly embodies Carl's character, like his emotions. The score, I feel like, really it's Carl's emotions throughout the film. Like if you think about it that way, and you're listening to the score, and you're like, oh, what's Carl feeling right now in the film? Like it's like on point. And this goes back to quickly to Garrett's point earlier about, you know, you can just listen to the soundtrack. I was listening to the soundtrack and I'm like, and I was just like totally, I knew exactly where I was in the film, because the soundtrack just like taking you on this journey of the heartbreak and the joy and the hope that like Carl has throughout the film. It's perfecto.
More alien slime coming right up.
Gone are the primitive days of feasting on fear and scoring scares. No longer is a monster measured by the horror that he inflicts. Because Monsters Incorporated is pioneering a whole new kind of energy to power your city, come meet our talented jokesters, who are responsible for the Monstropolis Power Grid's 120% surge. I used to be a janitor, and I told jokes to my mop. Now I tell jokes to kids, and they love me. Think you got what it takes? Sign up for Monsters Incorporated's open auditions. I'm Monsters Incorporated. It's laughter we're after.
Take your next vacation in the #1 rated tourist destination in South America. The jungle surrounding Paradise Falls is home to over 8,000 species of local flora and 1,800 species of fauna, including the endangered Kevin bird. There's no shortage of adventure when exploring the area's vast array of wildlife. But don't forget that Paradise Falls is also home to the historic landing site of the Fredrickson House. Come take a guided tour of this celebrated home and learn about the extraordinary lives of Carl and Ellie Fredrickson, as well as Carl's noteworthy contributions to local conservation efforts. Book your vacation to Paradise Falls today. Your next big adventure is just around the corner.
Here's your refill. Enjoy the rest of the show.
So a highlight track in Inside Out that I didn't share is the track Abstract Thought.
Oh,
and
okay.
it really doesn't show up, as far as I know, it doesn't show up any other place in the movie. But from a theory standpoint, it's very interesting just to listen to the like chord choices and the harmony choices that Giacchino uses. Because in Abstract Thought, it's like nothing's like quite connecting together in the right way and doesn't quite make total sense. And throughout the whole thing, I'm pretty sure every bit of harmony that he uses is dissonant. Like it doesn't sound good together, but he does it in a way that makes it sound good as a whole. But if you were to just play one of the chords he chooses, it would be super clashy. And then, so it's this like really fast paced piece where every single note that's played is dissonant with something else, and then as the track starts to wrap up, there's like two different there's two different groups of people playing the same theme together, but they slightly get off of time with each other, and one starts slowing down slightly more than the other. And from someone who played in like band and orchestras, like doing that would be so difficult. So like the conductor would have to almost conduct two different times, tempos at the same time, and they start like breaking apart from each other. But it's two large groups of people. Yeah. So from like both a writer's standpoint on that piece of just like, how do you choose all of these chords that don't sound good together, but when you put them together as a whole, they make sense and sound good? And then also from the player's perspective, how do you lock in with half a group and play this chunk of music in your own tempo and ignore the other group of people who are playing the same thing at a slightly different tempo? Yeah. It's just such an impressive piece of music. And it's only like, 45 seconds long or something, but it's just like, wow, it just highlights the skill of the people and the talent of the people involved. It's just so good.
Yeah. That's why we brought Tony onto the podcast.
Exactly.
By the way, Ben and I are also musicians, and we've played in groups with Tony before, and yeah, we are also musically intimidated by him.
Audience listener, if you're intimidated, we are more intimidated.
Just listen to the track, man.
Absolutely. I mean, I really want to go back now and check that out, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Abstract Thought is so good.
Yeah, 100% that is something I'm going to go listen to later. Yeah. After, I re-listen to this recording, I'm going to be like, okay, what's he talking about? Yeah. But no, I love that.
Yeah.
Give us more tidbits like that.
I'll do my best. That might be the only one I got.
Okay, well.
Other than Incredibles having the best. So The Incredibles, I'm going to talk about this for 10 seconds.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The overall, the little phrase I can put on the whole soundtrack is 60s spy swankiness.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the best tidbit I got for that.
Oh yeah.
I just enjoyed the word swankiness. I feel like it fits so well.
Yeah.
Anyways,
It is a swanky soundtrack. Isn't
Very
it?
swanky.
Yeah. Did you have anything else to share about Up before we moved on to the next?
not really.
Okay.
Other than just like how he uses that piano piece.
Okay.
It's very much like Inside Out, how he takes that theme and uses it so well with different emotions. And I'm interested to go back and watch that and see if that theme only gets played when he's like remembering or feeling some way because of Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wonder if that theme gets played any other time when he's just walking around, or if it's only like when he looks at the house or when he's remembering something about Ellie, because it is married life. Like, that theme comes in because it tells their whole entire story.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know if it only comes up when he's thinking about, which is a large portion of the film when he's thinking about Ellie, but
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Tony, because I was going to say my other title track is Stuff We Did.
when is that?
Stuff We Did. So that I like that one even more than Married Life, because it's so emotional. So
Is that the one on the cliff when he's in the house looking at the scrapbook at the
yes.
end?
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, he's remembering, and that's when that's the point in the film, like probably one of the most heart-wrenching parts of the film, where he's in the adventure book, and then he sees like it's like she has the message like, you were my adventure.
Yes.
You know.
So I need
just
to
got
insert.
chills
I know we're not talking about the
Yeah.
actual films in this episode. We're talking about the soundtracks, but I do want to say, Ben, like that scene. Well, like in Up, I'm pretty sure when I first saw this in theaters, like the first 10 minutes got me. Like who did it not get?
Exactly.
But I am fairly certain I had a much more visceral reaction to that scene.
Right.
Like my physical compulsion to cry was way more triggered from that scene than the opening 10 minutes.
And hanging out right behind what you were saying is da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na.
Stop it. No, it is so good. And lastly, I wanted to say, so then at the end of the film, the one of the other best scores is called Ellie's Badge. And it's when he gives the badge to Russell.
Grape soda.
Yeah. And it comes back again. It's like
That theme comes back. The
See,
same
I-
one?
yeah, same one,
man.
yeah.
See, I think like that one got me too, but like only like on rewatches.
Right.
Because I want to say that one, like the first time I saw it, didn't actually hit me as hard. But now, like maybe it's because I'm like older and have more of like, I don't know, like an adult instinct. So like, I don't know, it means something different. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one is definitely good too. So what else do we have in common on our list? So like,
I believe you're number one.
my number one is Wall-E. Is that on your list?
It's not, but I think it's on Ben's.
Ben, what was Wall-E on yours?
Number 3.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So yeah, I for me, Wall-E and Finding Nemo go kind of hand in hand. Like they're both Thomas Newman.
Yep.
They're both like absolutely. You used the word magnum opus earlier, talking about the Up soundtrack for Michael Giacchino. And it's so hard when looking at Finding Nemo and Wall-E next to each other, because to me they're both like his magnum opus. But
They're so good,
but
yeah.
here's why. Here's my hot take. Why Wall-E just slightly edges out Finding Nemo. Okay, so Finding Nemo, this might be controversial, but I think Finding Nemo would still be a great movie. Now, don't get me wrong, Thomas Newman absolutely adds everything to that movie and makes it better and elevates it and like completes it. But Finding Nemo would still be a great movie without Thomas Newman. But I think Wall-E starts to fall apart without Thomas Newman.
Okay.
So
Carry on.
That's a good take. Okay.
So like
Let me hear why.
okay, so Wall-E is a protagonist who doesn't talk. Like the first, 20 minutes of the movie?
Oh, that's true.
There's no dialogue, and the music is absolutely fundamental. You cannot tell that story without that music. And so, like just look at the theming of it, where you've got like space and you've got this dreamer character who's like looking up into the stars, and it just like everything that we've talked about, what we love about Thomas Newman, like he's got this ethereal soundscape where he is transportative and he just puts you in kind of like this like very almost psychedelic state of mind with his music.
Yeah.
And like that 100% functions as a tool to tell the story of Wall-E.
Right.
But I mean, beyond that, like on a lighter note, I also want to highlight that this is one of the few Pixar films that has an actual collaboration between the score writer and a singer-songwriter to add to the credits of the music. So the song, I think, Down to Earth from the credits of this movie absolutely gets slept on. I just recently listened to
so good.
the episode, the Animation Addicts podcast has an episode where they talked about all the Pixar songs, basically all the songs with lyrics that appear in Pixar songs. And I was so mad because they literally were like, there's apparently a song in Wall-E called Down to Earth. I don't remember it. Let's move on. And I was like, but it's the best one. Like on this entire list, every song that you guys are talking about. But no, Down to Earth is just like, it's a fun pop song. So Peter, for those who don't know, Peter Gabriel is singer-songwriter. He sings on it, but it still has a sound, like a sonic vibe that matches the score.
Yeah,
and
it
it's
does.
because it's co-written by Peter Gabriel and Thomas Newman. Like they collaborated on it.
Nice.
So that it fits in with the soundtrack. It doesn't feel like this jarring, like, because like in a lot of animated movies, becomes like kind of like a criticism of some animated movies where they just hire a random pop star, have them just make like a super random fun pop track that kids will like,
right,
and then they just throw it in the credits. And this is not that. This is an actual effort to make that pop song that you know is really fun and like fun to listen to. Like they're trying to make it actually fit into the soundtrack.
Yeah, cohesive.
So it's a fun flavor, fun vibe. I wish more films would do this, where the composer collaborates with the singer for the track on the credits.
Totally, yeah. That's such a jam too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like another point for this soundtrack is that it utilizes some pre-existing pieces of iconic music. So I don't know how to pronounce all these, but like you'll recognize I think it's called Also Sprach Zarathustra and Blue Danaboo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing those right, but these are like references to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, okay,
And then you also get like the soundtrack from Hello Dolly. And that just all adds a lot of like mystique to the soundtrack, I think.
Yeah, and we might have already mentioned this, but yeah, LaVie and Rose, Louis Armstrong, is that's an interesting one too, because that, like, I love Louis Armstrong, right? Like, you know, he's great. You know, it's a wonderful, what a wonderful world. Like, you know, for those who don't know, but that track is like, I remember seeing it with Wall-E, and I'm like, this is such a Pixar song, but it's like, it's not.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting.
Is that the one that he plays on the little iPod or whatever?
Yeah.
And that's like a significant. That's a piece of music that's significant to the story too.
Right. It is. Yeah. No, that's up. Hold on, I got it.
Oh yeah. That's some great mouth trumpet.
That sounds like trumpet.
Yeah, that's awesome. But you just said something about something sounding Pixar-esque. One thing I forgot to mention about Down to Earth, the Peter Gabriel song. Like the first time I heard it, I genuinely thought it was Randy Newman singing. He sings in a very similar style and range to Randy Newman in that song, which I just think adds to the lore of Pixar, where it's like this is what Pixar's sound kind of is.
Yeah.
So like other artists who are now singing songs in Pixar movies are kind of, I don't know if he was directly influenced by Randy Newman or not, but like in my head canon, it's like he knew, you know, You Got a Friend in Me and all these other Randy Newman songs, and so he's kind of making it sound like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's so good, man. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, Wall-E and Finding Nemo are so similar, and they're on the top of my list because I agree that I think they're the top of his canon, of his log, you know, and it's such a cinematic. and creative score. It's also very immersive too. That score.
Yeah.
And yeah, it starts out kind of like really interesting and sci-fi and kind of like almost like live action score-esque.
Yeah.
At the beginning of it, it's almost off-putting a little bit.
Yeah.
At the beginning, like off-putting in the sense of like it doesn't feel like kiddie and stuff. It's like very like serious and kind of like almost doomsday kind of vibe, you know. But then it picks up with these memorable scores. That we'll get to in a second, but yeah, it really shows like the innocence of this robot and, you know, newfound love.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, so title tracks. Can I jump into that?
Oh yeah, standouts. Yeah.
Yeah, standouts. So like, my top two are Eve.
Yep.
And Define Dancing.
So those are my top four. I also noted 72 Degrees and Sunny and obviously Down to Earth. But I think you're right that Eve is obviously great, but I think Define Dancing, if we're talking magnum opus, like that's probably the peak of this soundtrack for Thomas Newman.
Yeah, it is. It's so good. And I was listening to it, and it's actually the same theme, Eve and Define Dancing.
Yeah.
So,
because that's the love theme for the film.
And this is when they're floating around in space, and he's got the fire extinguisher.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right. And and I love one thing we didn't really talk about, like, again, the difference between WALL-E and Finding Nemo. So Finding Nemo is all about underwater, and so we were talking about how that ethereal aspect kind of works with that. And then in this movie, you've got Define Dancing, which takes place in outer space, which is arguably like an even more grand scope version of being in the abyss of underwater.
Right. Yeah.
But not only are you using that kind of sonic flavor to its full capacity, but you're also adding sci-fi elements, because all the scenes that take place on the Axiom, he's doing different things than what he did in Finding Nemo. Whereas I feel like a lot of the stuff sonically that he did in Finding Nemo, he was able to repurpose in this because of the space theme. But he's also doing more like new, unique stuff with like this sci-fi sound where there's a lot more. I don't know if you want to call them beeps and boops, but
I know what you mean. Yeah,
but like it definitely comes off more. I'm trying to think what to compare it to, like. Not Star Trek, but you know,
it does
something
vibe,
slightly more pulpy. Maybe.
Yeah, it almost has like a Star Wars kind of like fun like vibe where like there's, I forget which score it was. I think it might be the WALL-E track, but it's like it's got this little like almost like a tin can sound that's like.
Okay, yeah,
and it's like he's utilizing these interesting sounds and instruments.
Yeah, like lots of little tinks and just almost like robots. That's a good example. So the old movie by Blue Sky Animation,
R.I.P.
Yeah, the old movie by Blue Sky Animation called Robots used that same kind of like lots of metallic tones. To kind of underscore. To give it more of a robotic feel, and I think that Thomas kind of did that a little bit in WALL-E.
Yeah,
but
that's cool. I want to give just some praise to him for, you were saying at the beginning how there's no dialogue. It's just WALL-E strolling along, doing his thing. He doesn't even have like facial expressions. His eyes move a little bit.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah,
he does some movements with his body, but it's a robot driving around and cleaning up trash, and you have to score that somehow.
Yes,
and I did the short film for you guys, where Color Comes From, and that was a silent film where it was only music. I don't even for 90% of it, it was just music.
Yeah.
And I had a new refreshing respect for people who score things that are quote unquote silent films. I know there's other sound effects and stuff that happen in WALL-E, but it takes so much more energy and like precise thinking to score something without dialogue, because normally you'll have 30 seconds of a film or whatever with no dialogue, and then someone talks, so you back it off, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just put something under this dialogue that kind of like supports what they're talking about or their emotions, and then I'll bring back whatever. Like I'm gonna ramp this back up when there's no dialogue or they're traveling or moving or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the whole beginning of this film.
Yeah.
Like anytime it's only Wall-E or just Wall-E and Eve, there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
And so it's just music the whole time and sound effects. And then so like whoever, I don't know animation terms, but whoever like animated them, these like not human things, they're very like clunky Wall-E.
Yeah.
And then Eve has like 3 parts to her body that move. Like however they
Four parts.
4 parts that
Yeah.
move. However they like whoever they are who creatively decided like how their bodies should move to convey an emotion.
Yeah.
Plus the music, like that team right there is stellar. Because that is I can't imagine that was easy on the creative board. Like, oh man, like there's like half of this movie doesn't have dialogue. How do we make this enjoyable for people?
Yeah. Like if you think about it, Wall-E, like in live action, if Wall-E was a human character and was live action, that would already be challenging.
Yeah.
Because like he's a mute character, he's not talking. So you're like what you're saying, you're putting a lot of work on the person writing the score to help convey different emotions. But in that scenario, you have a on-camera human who's giving a performance that's going to add a lot.
Yeah.
But then once you make it animated, you're putting a lot of work on the animators then. But then you make the mute character, a robot
That's a
with
rolling
limited
trash can.
mobility and expressions, and like
No dialogue.
Yeah, nothing.
it's like
Wow.
it's like they literally stacked the odds against themselves and still succeeded, and that says so much about Pixar animators, and it says so much about Thomas Newman.
Yeah.
So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, and for reference, they did this so well. I'm not going to ask you guys to show where it ends up on your top however many list for Pixar, but this movie is number 4 on my overall list, like just of Pixar movies.
Yeah.
And for like that beats a lot of movies, and half of it doesn't have dialogue. Like those creators did such an outstanding job. With that.
Yeah. I'm not going to spoil where it is, but Wall-E is not near as high ranking as Finding Nemo. So the fact that it edges out Finding Nemo and soundtrack, that just says so much to me about like how much of an achievement. And that's why I'm like leaning towards giving the status of magnum opus to Wall-E because like there's just so much more to appreciate. I think for me about Wall-E's soundtrack over Finding Nemo's.
Yeah, well, speaking of magnum opuses, I've seen a video essay on YouTube that claims that Wall-E is like the film itself is Pixar's magnum opus. So there's there are fans out there, and I mean that's definitely an interesting argument because it is, like you guys said, so much work when there's not dialogue. And I would say like I'm actually drawing a connection now from Wall-E, especially the beginning, to now the first few minutes of Up, because Up is also non-dialogue.
Yeah.
And so much is relying on the composer, but obviously we're also not talking about right now about the animators and what goes into literally every. I mean, it's visual storytelling, right? Yeah. Every movement, everything. And so, I mean, you could argue that both, the beginning of Wall-E and the beginning of Up, if you took away all of the sound, just the visual, you would understand what's happening. It's so impressive that they're able to tell these stories without dialogue.
Yeah. So is that your whole top 5 list, Ben? Have we talked about everything on your list?
Yep.
Okay, and then Tony, I think I remember because you had the Giacchino Fest happening. I want to say I don't remember where it ranked, but the last thing on your list that we haven't talked about is Ratatouille. No.
I've got 2.
Oh.
I've got Ratatouille and Cars.
Oh, that's right, Cars, because Randy Newman. Well, let's talk about Cars.
Cars will be brief.
That's a very interesting pick.
Randy Newman,
I like the Cars soundtrack, but I really want to hear why it hit your number 5.
So, confession, I didn't actually listen to the soundtrack.
Oh no, that's fine.
The reason, so Randy Newman unless it was like a decision of his to bring these songs in, Randy Newman has nothing to do with the reason why this is number 5.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
It's the use of the songs that are in it, the songs with words.
Oh yeah,
that are in it,
yeah.
which is "Life Is a Highway"
Yep.
and "Shaboom."
Yeah.
I think is what it's
Shaboom.
called. And "Shaboom" is when they're like waltzing around
Life could be
downtown.
dream.
Yeah, and the
Life
neons
could
all
be
turning
dream.
around, and they like throw it back to their glory days of
Yes.
like what Radiator Springs was.
Yeah.
And one like we loved this movie when we were younger. My dad is a big car like actual cars guy,
yeah.
like
Yeah,
engines
yeah.
and stuff. And so he liked this movie. We watched this movie a lot, and those 2 songs are just perfect with what's going on in the film. Like Life Is a Highway, driving, and if you've ever been on a road trip, like they show the scenes of like passing the cornfields or whatever, and you're looking at the rows, and just what that looks like, and then the telephone lines, the electric lines going up and down as you're driving past them, and then Life Is a Highway is playing behind it, and it's such a road trip song.
Yeah, it is.
It's just it perfectly placed in that film, and it's the same thing with Shaboom.
Oh, yeah.
And it just throws me back to my like when I was younger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I do like Cars. And talking about Shaboom real quick, like I talked about this on the parks episode where we were talking about the Disney parks, but in California Adventure, if you go to Radiator Springs at sunset, they play that song so that you can cruise. Like people do this actual dance like on the street, like they're cruising up and down.
they're walking or they drive their cars.
No, they're walking.
Oh.
But it's supposed to be
That's sick.
yeah, it's supposed to be like an
Wow.
opportunity for you. Like I was there. I had the opportunity. I did not, but you can get on the street like and physically kind of like you're just walking in a line, kind of like a conga
Doing the
line,
cruise.
but yeah, you're just kind of like bouncing with the music
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I guess that was a thing. Like my dad talks about somewhere around us, a couple towns over, they would do, this was, I don't know, 70s, but
Yeah.
they would, be strolling down Main Street going like 5 miles an hour in their nice cars and whatever they were working on. And they like eventually got ran out of the town. They're like, guys, stop. This is Main Street. Like, get out of here. But I think it's a cool throwback to that like style, that
Yeah.
just cruise through a town kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's
that era.
cool.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm looking at the soundtrack right now, and it does have like it has a lot of like more so than any other Pixar movie that I can think of, a lot of uses of pre-existing like songs. Like we were talking about how Finding Nemo kind of popularized that Robbie Williams song for our generation, but then you've got this movie bringing in Sheryl Crow, Chuck Berry, Rascal Flatts, like you said, Brad Paisley, James Taylor,
Yeah,
the
wow.
chords.
Okay, I didn't realize there were that many. Wow.
Like there's a lot of stuff here, and so John Mayer, what? And then I could have sworn, I'm not seeing it on the list, but I could have sworn, wasn't there a song that was actually written for the movie?
In Cars.
Was that Cars 3?
Well, there was one in Cars 3, but I could have sworn. I'm trying to look it up right now. Yes. So the song Our Town, performed by James Taylor, was written by Randy Newman for the movie.
Oh.
So like if you ever go back and listen to that soundtrack, listen to that song, because that is the one song that was actually like Cars unique. So anyway.
Nice. Cars 5 or Cars number 5 because of nostalgia. Pretty much why it's on my list.
Respect.
Yeah.
I can't lie. Every time I hear Life is a Highway, I get hype.
Yeah, it's such a jam.
Yeah.
And by the way, we need to make a playlist after this. Can we like put like a Spotify playlist in the show notes or something?
Yeah.
Oh, that links all these songs up.
so that the audience can like kind of like come back and listen to like our highlight tracks, like the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, let's do it.
That would be awesome. So my number 5, you just shared your number 5. I'll finish off my list here. Turning Red. So this is by far the most out of left field pick I feel like any of us have for our top fives because this is such a new soundtrack. It's also not at all in line with like typical Pixar because like we've been talking about Giacchino, we've been talking about the Newman cousins, but we have not talked about Ludwig Göranssons. I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. Ludwig Göranssons is the guy who did the score for Turning Red. Now I'm giving partial credit to him for the soundtrack and also partial credit to Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas O'Connell because this is one of those soundtracks where it's kind of got a duality to it. So you've got Ludwig's score, which is like a very Chinese-inspired score that kind of seamlessly meshes with some early 2000s vibes, like pop vibes. Like one of the best example tracks that I'll highlight is the song Temple Duties, where he's kind of like infusing this 2000s early pop hip hop kind of beat, but it's got a very Chinese instrumental sound to it. I'm probably doing a terrible job describing it, but yeah, go listen to like Temple Duties and you'll know what I mean. But like I like what he does with the soundtrack a lot. I think it's very, very good soundtrack. But what tips it over the edge for me is Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell's contribution. So they collaborated with again, I'm going to get these names wrong, but singers Grayson Villanueva, Jordan Fisher, I know who that is, Josh Levi, and these are the guys who make up, along with Phineas, Four Town. And so not only do they deliver 3 whole original songs with multiple variations of those songs throughout the film, but they actually, so my favorite track is a collaboration. So we were talking about collaborations between singer-songwriters and composers earlier that I really appreciate. In this soundtrack, you can listen to the track Pandas Unite / Nobody Like You Reprise. So in that one, it's got this like very like I don't know what you call it, like a chanting, like almost Chinese but Gregorian kind of vibe, and then Four Town comes in and starts singing backup, and so it's like a mashup between Nobody Like You, this pop song that's meant to be like a early 2000s boy band song, but it's meshed up with this like exciting Chinese chant. Nice. And it's just very, very creative. It gets me every time. I like listen to this a lot. And so yeah, that's why I love this soundtrack. So my highlights are obviously going to be like One True Love, that's one of the Four Town tracks. I already mentioned Temple Duties. You Know What's Up is another one of the Four Town tracks, but they do a version of it in the movie called the Panda Hustle version. So it's kind of mixed in with the vibe of the score. That's during the montage sequence where they're like swindling all their friends into paying for panda merchandise. And then of course like Pandas Unite would be my favorite track on the soundtrack. So that's why Turning Red popped into my top 5.
Nice. It's really good. It made my honorable mentions list.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I remember enjoying the film.
Yeah.
When it came out, and obviously I love Four Town, you know.
Yeah.
I was just, skimming through some of the soundtracks to prepare for this episode, and when I came across Turning Red and I was flipping through some tracks, I was like really impressed with how creative the soundtrack is.
Oh yeah.
It is not for lack of better words, cookie cutter soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, whoa, like it's doing all this really cool stuff. It's got the Chinese influences.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really creative and cinematic, and yeah, it deserves some love. I definitely need to dive into it more.
Yeah, like I don't think it's gonna be like remembered as iconic as some other Pixar movies, but I definitely think that those 3 songs I mentioned by Four Town like will kind of stand on their own, at least in Disney canon.
Sure.
Like years down the road. So yeah, did you listen to the Turning Red soundtrack at all, Tony?
No, but I have watched the movie in at least the last 2 months. Throughout the movie, do they keep that like the 2000s sound going.
Yeah.
Like for some reason I'm remembering when they're just like running through the town at some point. You know, the group of 4 girls. I remember the soundtrack happening, but I also remember this like 2000s beat or something happening. And they're using these instruments that are like electronic, but from the 2000s. Is that, am I remembering right?
Probably, because so if you don't recall, the movie takes place in 2003.
Yeah.
So they went out of their way to make sure like the fashion, the architecture, products, cars, everything is it's a period piece. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Ludwig and or Phineas were sampling or utilizing sounds that were popular in that time.
That's kind of like a throwback to Incredibles a little bit. They're good at their time.
Their
time. You know, whatever the setting of the movie is. Incredibles use this great like horn section, which was big in the 60s, and Turning Red is using this like 2000s cool like Backstreet Boys kind of pop sound, like just sprinkled all over the movie, especially when the 4 Town's out. But
the claw machine is jammed. Sorry, we gotta fix that. We'll be right back. Can you hear that? Low rumble of engines coasting down the freeway on a breezy Sunday. The lush crunch of a tire making contact with a gravel road of unexplored possibilities. Feel the cool wind and smell the sweet sun-baked desert air as you accelerate down the timeless route. Witness the awe of the mountains protruding from the earth like beckoning palaces of crimson stone. Your road might be long, but it doesn't have to be hard. Make every moment driven by purpose at Radiator Springs, Arizona. This fake ad has been fake paid for by the fake Radiator Springs Tourism Commission. Hey, I'm a pizza. I'm here to talk to you about the senseless devouring of my kind. Next time you are thinking of going to an awesome space-themed restaurant that serves delicious mouth-watering cheesy pies, please think of me and reconsider. Consume more poultry. Stop the innocent slaughter of anthropomorphized galactic-themed pizza. Eat at Poultry Palace. Right now, get an exclusive toy from the new movie Woody's Roundup Shadow Over the West. 1 toy comes with each fun meal. Collect them all and see Woody's Roundup Shadow Over the West in theaters this summer, starring Scott Eastwood and Emily Blunt. We got the claw machine figured out. Now we can get on with the show.
All right, Tony, I think we just have one item left on your list.
Yeah. So number 2 on my list, right behind Incredibles, was Ratatouille. Which is
Giacchino Fest.
That's right. This is the most recent addition to my list. I think it was just added in the last 2 days. So I was listening to this at work, and it's one just like Incredibles, where it just kept me engaged the whole entire time. There was not much space in this movie just to kind of like do what I was doing and not really pay attention to what's happening because it's kind of ambient or whatever. Something was always moving. Something was always grabbing my attention throughout this soundtrack, which is the first reason it's high on my list. The pizzazz and energy in this soundtrack is so good. Like, one, you're dealing with rats who, like, they're like fast creatures. They're like, get out of the way. They're scurrying creatures. It's already this fast paced sound and tempo that you would expect, and they're working at a restaurant in Paris, which you can imagine at dinner time would be nuts. Like that's also fast paced, and it's the second main character. What's his name? Linguini.
Yeah,
is like bumbling around this kitchen, like trying to figure out what to do, and the rat, I just had his name. What's his name? Remy. Is like, you know, towards the beginning of the film, it's like kind of trying to catch his mistakes, and he's like, whoa, doing all the, and it's just like energy. There's a lot of energy in this movie already, and the soundtrack just embodies that. During that last break, we listened to a little bit and like listened to a little bit of one of the tracks. It was called 100 Rat Dash, and you guys were just like grooving in your chairs because it's just like and it's just these
like
super fast notes the whole
It's
time.
like jittery.
Jittery is the right word. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like manic.
Yeah. And it, as a musician, like, so I think I already said this, played trombone, and to play notes that fast and that consistent, like, you're so engaged with what you're doing. I think just listening to the soundtrack just pulled me back into that. And I'm like, ooh, like technicality. I love this. Just the, I don't know how much like theme, like callback themes there are in this, but callback styles for sure. Just listening to the soundtrack, when Remy's on the screen or Remy's doing something fast and crazy, or the other rats are like running around, and you can feel where they're in the kitchen and there's this heat, and they're like, or Remy's being creative with Linguini and like putting the different spices together. They're explaining food and it gets a little jazzy or something. Like,
Yeah.
they do a great job of supporting the different actions that are happening on screen, and they do it. He does it so well that you can visualize it and feel it without having actually watched the movie, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the like highlights of Incredibles was 100 Mile Dash. Once that song comes on, you can imagine that it's a character running really fast and there's these crazy things happening around him.
Yeah.
He does it there too, and that Ratatouille is like filled with that. So
Yeah, dude. It's so good. Yeah. I love the French vibe.
yes,
Like you are in France. I love that. And to your point about the theme, it's really interesting. So, because that track almost made my top 5, or that soundtrack almost made my top 5. But yeah, the soundtrack starts off with La Festin,
Yeah.
And is that chronological? Like, does the movie actually start with the song being sung?
No.
Okay.
It's first on the
traditionally,
soundtrack.
Right.
Yeah, traditionally, if a song is sung by a singer, a lot of soundtracks will put that at the top. I don't know if it's a contractual thing, like singers request, like I want my song to be heard first.
Right.
But usually that will happen where the first chunk of tracks is the song. So like often you'll hear the credit song first in the soundtrack.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because those are always the everyone's drawn to.
Yeah, those are the hits that sell records.
Yeah. But yeah, the as I was listening to the soundtrack, La Festin, so she's singing. I don't know what the words are, but the
French.
She's singing the French. No, the melody is the theme throughout it.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. So maybe that's not how the movie obviously goes if that's not the first track, but when you're listening to the soundtrack, I was like, oh, that's so interesting, like that melody. So who knows, the chicken or the egg, like what came first, but either way, it's really cool how that theme goes on.
I can speak to the chicken and the egg. So I was going to highlight La Festin also as an important track because I keep talking about, I love it when singers are collaborating with score writers. And this is another example where there's a song written by Michael Giacchino and then, sung by an actual singer. So she may have also I should have fact checked that. She may have also contributed to the writing, like lyrics or whatnot. I'm not sure, but I do know that what you're talking about, Ben, is that reoccurring theme. That would be Michael Giacchino's contribution. Is it Michael Giacchino or Giacchino? Does anyone know?
Giacchino, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, I always said Giacchino.
I apologize if it's
wrong.
Giacchino.
We're sorry, Mike.
But
Can we call you Mike?
we'll just call him Mike from now on. But yes,
Mike and Tom.
Ratatouille was also like right on the verge of being in my top 5. Like it was my top 5 on my first draft before Turning Red dethroned it. So
Oh yeah, it's really good.
yeah, I love it because it's so relaxing to listen to. I'm not gonna lie. It's like Ratatouille is such a comfort movie on so many levels because everything from the message to the characters to the subject material, like food, and then it all is wrapped in this very like European, like ritzy kind of like soundscape that's just like, oh my gosh, the soundtrack is something you put on when you're having like candlelit dinner.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, like, listening to this the other day, I was thinking, oh, I should make dinner or something for Darcy, my fiance, and like do like the candlelight and play this soundtrack.
You
And
should
I'm like,
make Ratatouille and then play the soundtrack.
Have you guys ever eaten Ratatouille?
We haven't.
No.
I was so close to multiple times. Actually, it might have just been the one time that I actually had the opportunity to order it. But like every time I'm adjacent to a restaurant that it serves it, I'm like, I gotta go. But one time I actually was at a restaurant that served it, and I was like, but I really want duck. Come on, man. I ended up ordering duck instead.
You had the chance, man. Give it up for duck.
I had the chance, but I love duck.
So I have had Ratatouille.
Oh, okay.
One time, so back when this movie came out, my whole family saw it. My dad made Ratatouille one night.
Oh.
And so watching the film as a kid, you see him putting all those little slices in there, and they look like pepperonis.
Right, yeah.
So I'm expecting like this like pepperoni zesty kind
Aren't they
of
like
flavor.
zucchinis or something?
It's like a bunch of vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah. With like
Yeah.
not there's no like big flavors like pepperoni would have. It's
Right.
kind of got like some kick to it.
It's like a squash almost.
Yeah, it's like squash and zucchini, and I was like, "What is this? Like, this is not what I was expecting. I thought this was sausage."
See, I think
Yeah.
it must be whatever like the sauces or whatever like they season it with. I'm not sure. Like I don't remember fully what the movie like because I know he pours like a sauce around it.
Yeah.
And then he puts like a little garnish on it. But yeah, I'm almost wondering if like it is more about how you flavor those.
Yeah.
And maybe how you cook it too.
Yeah, I don't even know if traditionally it has a sauce because I think it's like, you're using a bunch of vegetables out of the garden. You slice them up and you bake them. Like
Right.
that's the flavor you should expect. Like,
Okay.
I don't know that it's this. The point is it's not like this high class
Right.
meal. It's this
Right.
like simple to make, anybody can make it kind of thing.
Right.
So-
Well, I'm still trying to convince Ben we need to do a Pixar taste test episode.
Yo,
Food testing.
invite me
because
back.
because there's like a lot of like I'm not gonna spoil it now, but I have like a list of like there's a lot of unique cuisine that appears
Yeah.
in Pixar films beyond just Ratatouille, and so there's like a lot of like cool stuff you could try. So, anyways,
Have you back, TZ?
Yeah, I'd love to be back for that one.
So,
I'd love to be back in
anyways,
general.
yeah, no, we'll
Back to music.
we'll have to have TZ back because that would be super fun. So do you guys have any honorable mentions that we didn't talk about? I can go over mine real quick if you guys want.
Yeah, shoot.
So one thing we didn't talk about that I was crossing my fingers that somebody would bring it up. Like Coco.
I
Like
know.
That
frickin-
was on my list, and I
frickin'
knew
Coco.
Cars better, so I took it off my list.
Remember
that
me-
was
my,
5.
That's my next one.
Yeah,
Remember me Un Poco Loco and Proud Corazon.
Yeah.
So good, yeah.
Dude, Anthony Gonzalez, his voice is so good. Have you like guys seen him like online? Like he's posted videos, like I think on like TikTok of him like singing "Remember Me." Like now that his voice is aged up a bit.
Is that the kid? in the
Yeah,
film?
yeah.
Okay.
The guy,
cool.
No, I haven't.
the kid who voiced Miguel he's now. I'm not sure how old he is, but he looks like a
Teenager.
man.
Oh, he's an adult. now, probably.
He looks like a man. I'm not sure how old he is. He might be like 18 or something. I'm not sure. But yes, that's great. Again, that's a Michael Giacchino score.
So good.
Yep.
Ratatouille was one of my honorable mentions. Obviously, another big one for me is Brave. So I don't love the movie Brave, but I love its soundtrack.
So
'Cause
good.
Patrick Doyle, who I feel like he just accelerates at like Celtic music. Maybe has something to do with his heritage based on his name, but yeah, he's got this very richly Celtic sounding score, which I love Celtic music.
Yeah.
Julie Fowlis has some songs on the soundtrack that are really iconic, Touch the Sky and Into the Open Air. But most importantly, dude, Learn Me Right
Yeah.
by Mumford & Sons is a featured song in this soundtrack. Birdie sings it, so you would never guess.
Okay.
You may not guess. I shouldn't say you would never, but you may not guess that it's Mumford & Sons listening to it. I did. I think when we
Yeah.
saw this movie in theaters, I went with my family, and I have been a huge fan of theirs since they first became popular in like, what was it, 2009 when their first album hit. And so I was obsessed with them. Like I'd listen to their first album like on repeat, like all through college. And so when I heard the song "Learn Me Right," I'm like, this is Mumford and Sons. Like I turned to my dad, I was like, this is Mumford and Sons, and he's like, this is a girl singing, and so like we waited for the credits, and I pointed at the screen. I'm like, that's Mumford and Sons.
Yeah.
But they ended up re-releasing this song with them singing it. And the Babel Deluxe album. So their second album, the deluxe version, comes with a track called "Not with Haste." So not with haste is literally just "Learn Me Right," but with like it's a different version. So like they kind of changed some of the lyrics, and the I think the tempo is slightly different. But Marcus Mumford's singing it, obviously.
And that's in Brave.
Yes,
Yeah,
in Brave.
towards the end of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so the song in Brave is "Learn Me Right," but their version of it that appears on Babel Deluxe is called "Not with Haste."
Okay.
So
I didn't know that was the deluxe. I thought that was on the regular album.
I think it only appears on the deluxe album. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Because I've only ever listened to the deluxe album, and when I was looking it up earlier, I was also looking at the deluxe album, and it's one of the last tracks, so I'm pretty sure it's...
Okay, yeah. I could be wrong, but I thought it was the last track on the standard album.
Maybe.
But either
Maybe.
way, it is a jam, and it's super sick that they collabed with Pixar and like, made it happen.
Yeah. But my next honorable mention would be Soul. This is another very... It's crazy to me that like these latter recent Pixar movies have been so music centric, because you've got Coco, you've got Turning Red. These are like movies that music actually influences the plot, and then you've got Soul, which is even more so music centric. You've got Trent Reznor, who I am obliged to mention, wrote one of the greatest songs of all time, "Hurt," and Atticus Ross, and they won their second Oscar for this score. In Soul, and their first one was from 2010 when they co-scored The Social Network. But it's my understanding that they handled the big picture score, such as like the scenes in the Soul world, while John Batista, is it Batista, Ben?
I think it's Batiste.
Batiste worked to create the like authentic soundscape for the jazz that is prevalently featured throughout the film. So had to mention that. And then, of course, Toy Story, You've Got a Friend in Me, classic. Up, Married Life, classic. Those are my honorable mentions.
So Soul was one of my two, and I think Coco was the other one. I feel like Coco we did good on. Soul, I expected that to be at least one of my top three when I was just thinking about it, because I absolutely love jazz music, and I was like, I remember the jazz in this movie being really good. It's been a couple of years since I've seen it, but and listening to it, if I could just take the jazz parts and make that the Soul album, it would be number one.
Oh,
but
the
like, you mentioned their names, like all the synth parts that are more just like the ambient score parts, I thought were like really simplistic, and maybe I just didn't listen to the soundtrack all the way through. But in comparison to the jazz parts, the more synthy parts didn't at all compare.
Okay.
They were like, knowing how some of that stuff works, it sounded kind of simplistic. Like it sounded like, let me program in this arpeggiator, which what an arpeggiator is it takes a scale, or it takes a chord, and it plays a note in each, most of the time, it'll play one note out of that scale, and then it'll skip to another note on that scale. So it'll be like ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That might all be in a C major, but it's playing all the different notes. And you can program different synthesizers that way. You say, here's a C major. I want you to play a C major 7 chord or whatever, and I want you to do it like this. Play these notes in these orders. Go. And it just plays them.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a lot of that with just not a lot of intentional, let's grow this here and let's bring it back here is.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Soul in a while, so it might fit the movie really well. But then on the other hand, there's the jazz parts, which are just so well written, and the talent and the creativity in it are just like next level. And so that's why, like, I love and don't love this movie the soundtrack at the same time, and it didn't make the top 5.
Yeah.
But just want to say the jazz parts, woo, next level.
Dude.
So good.
I'm glad you said that because I felt the same way. I remember, liking the music from the film, going back to it, and I just was zipping around, and I remember like thinking like, oh, like there's something here when I listened to a couple of the jazz stuff, but I didn't deep dive. So I'm really glad that you spoke highly of it because, I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, fact check real quick, Ben. You were right. Not with Haste is on just the basic Babel album.
Okay.
It's the final track on Babel.
Check it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out, Babel.
So you don't need to pay extra for the deluxe people. Just buy the original.
Gonna have to type in as many letters in Spotify. One thing they could have in Soul, one thing they could have done that would have made me love it is within those synth parts, make a reference back to the jazzy parts in any way. Like play a little jazz riff, even if it was on a synthesizer and they're just going back to that. Pitch. So even one thing they could have, here's my pitch. Take the synth parts and either record a saxophone and put like crazy effects on it to make it fit in with that synth sound, or take a synth instrument and put in some jazz elements. So maybe like, I'm going to get into this a little bit, like some like 7 chords, or jazz does this thing where they'll play their chord and then they'll keep stacking notes on top of it that aren't in the chord, but they're so far away from each other, like low and high notes, that they sound good together. So for you guys, you have like 1, 3, 5 is like your normal chord, like C, E, G. For anyone who knows anything about music, they'll put a D in, which is the second note, but they'll take it up an octave. So it becomes a 9. So you have 1, 3, 5, 9, and you can add 11 and 13, which are all notes that aren't normally in the chord, but they're so far away, they start sounding really cool, or diminished chords or anything like that. This movie was like, here's your C chord played on an arpeggiator. Go for, 30 seconds, and then we'll change it. And it was like, that's maybe not the effort level, but the difference in creativity that I was finding in this movie. And they could have easily like tied them together a little bit better and made it super interesting with this synthy, jazzy, just influence, not all jazz.
Yeah. Dude, that's kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
I still like the soundtrack, but that makes me understand and appreciate more why it didn't actually make any of our top 5s, because it's not that unified of a soundtrack. It's kind of two separate
very
soundtracks,
different things.
And maybe that's the point of the movie. I don't know, but there could be a reason for that. But I think you're right. I think I would like the soundtrack holistically more if it were that cross collaboration.
Yeah, I wish this is not one of the 2 movies that I haven't seen yet on this Pixar run, because I want to go back and watch it and see if visually they are as different as the soundtrack is. If it's supposed to take you to a completely different element, take the main character way out of his element, that would make me appreciate this a little bit more. But just the soundtrack, could have been a little more jazzy.
We
won't spoil it, but check it out. Wait, you haven't seen
I have seen it, but I saw it shortly after it came out, and I haven't watched it again since then. So I don't really remember it that well.
Sure.
Well, was that all your honorable mentions, TZ?
You guys talked about them. I had Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and then Coco.
Okay.
Coco was number 5, and about 10 seconds before we started recording, I was like, I don't know what to say about Coco. I just watched the movie, but I haven't dove into the soundtrack. But I do love Coco, both visually and the soundtrack.
It's inarguably a beautiful, like that one. I am a little bit disappointed that it didn't end up on any of our top 5, because I don't think there was no single soundtrack that appeared on all 3 of our top 5s, right? I don't think there was.
No, I don't think so.
So like that, anyways. Ben, what was your honorable mentions?
Well, before I jump into that, I mean, like, so do you guys have any more thoughts on Coco outside of the jams, like with lyrics, because those are obviously like amazing, but like, do you guys have any thoughts on the score?
That's why I took it out, because I haven't listened to those.
So it has it definitely, I love it when I think this is something Michael Giacchino excels at, is looking at the subject material and then like approaching it like what is the cultural, what music culturally influences this setting. And so it's like you get a lot of obviously the movie's set in Mexico, so you get a lot of Mexican folk inspired music, and
it's like,
I think it's good, but the parts that are memorable in the score are all callbacks to, like, you know, Remember Me. Like might hear an instrumental like melody line, dun, 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 dun. Like you might hear something that's meant to call back to one of those songs in the score, and those are the memorable parts.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I can't say I have much opinion or thought.
Yeah, I remember that also was close on my list. But I remember as I was jumping around, I think it was called like Crossing the Marigold Bridge. I forget what the name is. But
The Marigold Bridge. Yeah,
Crossing the Marigold Bridge. That score, I was thinking like, whoa, this is actually really cool. It was just the score itself was just really beautiful. Well done. So yeah, I need to jump into Coco. I think it's probably worth jumping into. But that is, if that theme that you're talking about, because I haven't watched the film in a while, but if that theme of like with Ratatouille with the La Festin, if it's like that for Remember Me, that would be pretty amazing. Well, one, it's just a great melody, but just the story point to it.
Yeah.
Like Remember Me, remembering is a big part of the film.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like it's like that would be like extra deep.
Yeah.
But anyways, other honorable mentions. Let's see that we haven't talked about yet. Oh, Luca.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I was not expecting to like that or like really enjoy that score because I don't remember it like standing out. I remember really liking the film, but you guys need to check out the Luca soundtrack.
Okay.
I think if I really gave it more time, it may have moved up higher. But it really is embodying the Italian Riviera vibes. So similar to like how Ratatouille like really gets you into France and stuff. Like that's how Luca does. But it also like was surprisingly like it had a lot of like emotion to it too.
Yeah, I feel like to me, like you got Brave and Ratatouille, and then Luca. These are all like very very specific of their locale sounds. So it's like if you want to go on a European tour, just put those 3 soundtracks into a playlist. Like that I remember liking Luca's soundtrack for similar reasons to what I like Ratatouille, but since I've only seen Luca once, I can't like recall like, oh, this was a standout track, or like this was one that really was cool for using this instrument or whatever, you know. But yeah, you're right. It definitely is a very transportative soundtrack.
I just remember a lot of accordion.
Oh yeah.
Is there a lot of accordion in that soundtrack?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. That had to have been in the repertoire because it's very Italian.
Yeah.
And then
okay.
I was kind of trying to separate like the scores from the songs as I was doing this preparation. Because there's so many songs that are such jams that I'm like, I want to put this film up higher just because of these, songs. Like for Coco, for example, like if I had been thinking like, hey, like if I'm putting the songs with lyrics on par with the scores, then Coco would have definitely been top 5. But because I was trying to separate the two a little bit, it was lower on my list. So yeah, all those Coco songs are such jams. I just want to make sure that we call out any other lyrical songs from the soundtracks. That we haven't said yet. So yeah, we talked about the Toy Story songs. You've Got a Friend in Me. I Will Go Sailing No More. Strange Things. We haven't talked about that. That's a good one. It's Toy Story 2. Sarah McLachlan, When She Loved Me.
Oh yeah.
Oof. Great song. We mentioned Monsters Inc. If I Didn't Have You. And Down to Earth. And then the Brave songs.
We don't need to wrap up quite yet because I do have some news for you guys.
Alrighty.
Extra, extra. Got your Pixar news right here. Read all about it.
So, this isn't necessarily like breaking news. Like I'm sure this was announced like months ago, like even a year ago. But I just found this out while I was researching for this episode. Some news that excites me personally, and I think it'll excite you, Ben. I just stumbled across the fact that Thomas Newman is returning to the world of Pixar.
Oh.
So Elemental is being scored by Thomas Newman.
Nice. Okay.
Yes.
Which I did not know until I was researching for this episode. So yeah, that's
What do you know? What the last movie he did was?
with Pixar.
Yeah.
Would have been Wall-E.
No.
Oh no! Finding Dory.
Finding Dory.
I'm
Finding
sorry.
Dory,
I'm sorry.
okay.
I'm sorry. I knew that. I just was not counting it because it's a
Yeah.
sequel to Finding
Yeah.
Nemo. Because Pixar's pretty good about like keeping the same person to score like when
Yeah.
they do sequels. So, but yes. So he's only done Finding Nemo, Wall-E, Finding Dory, and now he's gonna be doing Elemental.
Dude.
So this
That's
will be
cool.
his first like completely original take on a Pixar film since 2008.
Nice. Okay. That's cool.
Yes.
I appreciate them using him and not Michael Giacchino.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I just saw the trailer, not the new trailer for Elemental. The
Oh, yeah.
first trailer.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that me and a few other people agreed on was, wow, this kind of looks like Inside Out a little bit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if it is visually similar, which I haven't seen the new trailer, I don't know if it will be. If it is visually similar, it will at least be like musically different.
Yeah, yeah,
completely, which will be cool.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yeah, by the way, Ben, you'd be proud of me. I did avoid like the Black Plague watching the new theatrical trailer. I watched the teaser trailer because I
yeah.
knew that it wouldn't spoil anything.
Yeah.
But I was like, I won't watch. I'm going to pull Ben. I'm going to go in with fresh eyes
Nice.
to this movie.
Elemental.
But they played it in front of the Super Mario movie, so I was forced to watch it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I was like, whatever.
Oh,
I got
to the movie late, so I
Yeah.
missed it.
Yeah, I didn't,
Let's go.
I didn't realize that they were gonna play. I didn't even think about it, and then it started playing, and I was like, "Oh, well, okay. At least I get to see it on the big screen. Like that's better than watching it on YouTube." But
Yeah.
no, I think it actually does look good, and we don't have to talk about it now. But I wasn't too disappointed with any like spoilers or anything. I don't think there was anything.
You would be okay with
telling.
other people watching it.
Yeah,
It was surprisingly not spoiler heavy. So
Nice. Okay.
But yeah, also before we wrap up, I do want to share, I did a bunch of research, and just for the sake of thoroughness, I wanted to be able to share with you guys that Pixar has a deep history with the Oscars. So I did a quick breakdown of these are the songs and scores that have both been nominated and won Oscars from
Okay.
Pixar. Okay, so first of all, let's see, what would it be? Pre-1999, I think. They had musical scores divided into two categories. So you had best musical or comedy or dramatic score. And so Pixar fell into the former category. So in 1995, Toy Story was nominated for best musical or comedy score, and it lost to Pocahontas. And then in 1998, A Bug's Life was nominated for best musical or comedy score and lost to Shakespeare in Love. And that was the last time they had the divided categories. So then moving forward, they conflated those two categories to just best score. So Monsters, Inc. was nominated in 2001. It lost to Fellowship of the Ring.
Ooh,
well.
obviously, yeah.
Finding Nemo was nominated in 200003. Guess who that lost to?
The Two Towers.
Return of the King.
Return of the King.
Yeah. Ratatouille.
That's rough.
Ratatouille was nominated for best score in 2007. It lost to Atonement. I don't even know what that is. And then Wall-E was nominated in 2008 and lost to Slumdog Millionaire. Which is actually a good soundtrack. I don't hate that. But Up was nominated in 2009 and won.
Yeah.
Nice.
There we go.
Soul was nominated in 2020 and won.
Wow.
But that's all the times that Pixar movies have been nominated for scores. So it lost all the up until 2008. It had lost, and it was getting nominated pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Like not all the movies, but most of them were. And then Up finally won, and then they never got nominated again until 2020.
The bar was set
and
too
then
high.
and then they won for that one.
Nice.
So Soul and Up are the only score winners, unfortunately. But there's also the category of best song.
Okay. Yeah.
So in 1995, You've Got a Friend in Me, of course, was nominated and lost to Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas.
Which, come on. Come on.
And then in 1999, Ben, you mentioned When She Loved Me.
Yeah.
Sarah
McLachlan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Toy Story 2.
That got nominated. And then lost to You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan.
Oh.
Freaking Disney.
Banger right there.
Yeah.
And then Our Town. Oh, see, this is the one I was talking about. Our Town from Cars. It got nominated in 2006. So it was written by Randy Newman and then sung by blanking on his name, but the other guy. And so Our Town was nominated, and then it lost to a song called I Need to Wake Up from the movie An Inconvenient Truth. Which I think is an Al Gore documentary. Super random.
All right.
My favorite one, Down to Earth, was nominated in 2008 from Wall-E, of course. And what was that?
Because I'm guessing it lost.
Yeah, it lost. It lost to Jai-Ho, though, which I'm not mad about that. From Slumdog Millionaire, that's actually a bop. So.
Not Snow White.
Just sing it from Snow White. I hope.
No,
That came
Jai-Ho.
out in 2008.
Jai-Ho. Did you say hi-ho?
No, it's Jai-Ho. Jai-Ho.
Jai-Ho.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so then
love it.
in 2019, I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away, which was Randy Newman's theme for Forky in Toy Story 4, was nominated, and it lost to I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man, which is a
Elton John.
Elton John, yeah, he wrote for that movie. Which is also a good song. So I guess I'm not too mad about that. But we're backtracking here. In 2001, If I Didn't Have You from Monsters, Inc.
Oh, yeah.
won the Oscar for Best Song, beating out Anya's song from Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
So technically
May it be.
that was the first music-related win for Pixar.
Yeah.
Cool.
So If I Didn't Have You, historic. Then in 2010, We Belong Together from Toy Story 3. That ended up beating out Tangled's I See the Light.
Oh.
And then it won the Oscar for Best Song in 2010. And then finally, Remember Me.
Yeah.
Won in 2017. And if you remember what came out in 2017, you'll realize that that's a big deal.
It was a big deal.
It was going up against.
I don't remember, but I remember being surprised.
It was technically not even. Well, I won't say it's a dark horse, but it was definitely not like the clear winner when you remember what other movie came out that year that it was going up against.
What was it?
Dude, that was the year The Greatest Showman.
That's what it was.
Came out,
And I was
yeah.
like,
So-
how did Coco beat this? I was mad.
It beat out like
in the
This
world?
Is Me, which
Yeah.
was like the
nice.
anthem of the
Yeah.
generation at that time.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow,
so
that's impressive.
was a
so
big
Remember
surprise.
Me, big win for
Yeah.
Coco. So yeah, that's a breakdown of Pixar's music related Oscar nominations and wins.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, a couple notes there. One, clearly I was right that Up is Michael Giacchino's magnum opus.
Okay, yeah, you
So-
can back that up with Oscar facts.
Oscar cred there, and also Soul. Clearly, John Batiste, probably, maybe, I don't know, single-handedly carried the Oscar win. If the other part of the score isn't, as we say, way to go, John Batiste.
We see you.
You are seen.
But yeah, so that's all I got.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Oh.
So,
Apparently, I have something else.
Gareth, you have something else. The last thing that I wanted to ask you guys
Okay.
is, who is your favorite Pixar composer?
Is that even a question? Thomas Newman.
Mine's Michael Giacchino.
Yeah, I was gonna say like his
I couldn't answer that before
his
this,
top
but-
four were all Michael Giacchino.
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
Mike.
Good old Mike.
Sorry, Mike. Good old Mike. His top 4 were all Mike, and my top 2 were the only 2 Thomas Newman soundtracks that matter in Pixar's canon. So I feel like that, between Tony and I, we're both showing our bias with our lists.
Yeah.
So,
How about you, Ben?
follow-up question. So,
Well, are you going to answer the question?
Who's your favorite?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
I'll be like a politician. Let me answer that by asking you this. So then, who is the best?
Randy Newman.
No.
Hold on. Who is the best / the true Pixar composer?
Yeah, I figured that's what you were alluding to. I think Randy Newman, because he started with Toy Story and Bug's Life and Monsters, Inc., he coined like the sound of Pixar. And his voice, you hear his song, like even a non-Pixar song, you hear his voice now and you think Pixar. So like, I think that it's fair to say that even if my personal favorite is Thomas Newman, and Thomas Newman is my all-time favorite score composer, like I can't take credit away from Randy Newman as far as how much he has shaped Pixar. So if you're asking me who is the true Pixar composer, it's probably Randy.
Okay.
Let me answer that question with a question.
Go ahead.
If I were somebody, just your average Joe, and I had never seen a Pixar movie,
Okay.
and I said, y'all, I heard something here about this Pixar sound that y'all been talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Send me the soundtrack of one movie that encompasses the Pixar sound. What would it be? What movie would you send
Monsters,
me?
Inc.
Up.
I think
Fight me.
those are your answers right there.
This just turned into a movie fight. No.
I think that's your answer. Like, I don't know. The person, yeah, I absolutely, respect that's who, developed that Pixar sound. Mm-hmm. But I think at this point, it's been a lot of years. I think that whoever is embodying that the most and still coming up with creative and interesting things, I think that's who you're talking about. I'm saying this because I don't know much about any of the composers, so I'm trying to give you a vague answer. But
okay.
I think that if you were to pick one film and say that's the Pixar sound, and that's one of the best Pixar representative films or whatever, whoever wrote it, I think is nearing in on your answer.
So here is my reasoning for putting Michael Giacchino at the bottom. Like if we're all in agreement, the Newman cousins and Michael Giacchino, they're
Top
Pixar.
3.
They're the top 3. They're Pixar royalty. They're the ones that matter in this debate.
Yeah.
The reason I would put Michael Giacchino at number 3 is because, unlike the Newman cousins, I can't tell I'm listening to Michael Giacchino. He's a chameleon. So each one of his soundtracks sounds uniquely like that movie. So he's great at making an iconic movie that stands on its own.
Right.
But I'm not listening to Ratatouille going, oh, this is the guy who did Incredibles. I don't hear that. But when I listen to Thomas Newman, I've told this to Ben numerous times, if I'm watching a new movie and it's scored by Thomas Newman, I notice right away. I know that it's Thomas Newman. So I'm not only listening to it through the lens of oh, I like this soundtrack. I'm also listening to it in the sense that Thomas is doing this. This is his shtick, but he's doing this new thing to kind of
interesting.
Kind of like when you listen to a band that you really enjoy, you know what their sound is, but you still listen to their new albums because they're doing new and different things. And that's how I feel about Thomas Newman. And Randy Newman is that even more so, where every single Randy Newman soundtrack is a Randy Newman soundtrack, and it's to the point where I don't even think people who don't know who Randy Newman is, they do. They hear Randy Newman and they go, "That's a Pixar soundtrack." So there's, to me, that is more telling of what is representative of what Pixar is than Michael Giacchino, who's just a chameleon. He makes each soundtrack its own thing, and it has no connection to him Well, I mean, I shouldn't say it has no connection to him, but it's not something. He's not an auteur of scoring, I guess.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely think that I tend to be more in line with Tony as far as like if I was to answer those questions. I had Finding Nemo at number 1. WALL-E was number 3. So obviously, like, I love Thomas so much. But Up is number 2, Michael Giacchino. Inside Out, and then like Ratatouille and Coco are like right underneath my top 5.
Yeah.
So like Michael is so infused. And to answer Tony's question, I said Up as like the most Pixar. It's the most emotional score I think that Pixar's put out. So I love Thomas so much, but clearly Michael has a longer catalog that's so strong that I'd have to give it to Michael too.
So he's both your favorite and the one that you would categorize as the Pixar guy.
Yeah, I would say
like which are you saying, or are you saying both?
I guess I would say Thomas is my favorite because. Yeah, I'll say Thomas is my favorite, but Michael Giacchino I think is the true Pixar composer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to come back and have a full blown debate about this. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But that's really interesting because I like that we have different opinions on that because that's what makes this podcast colorful and work.
Nice.
Cool. So that's all I got.
That's all I got.
That's all I got.
Wow, this was a long episode, but I'm fine with it because last month we had kind of a short one. So hopefully, you audience listeners, what are we calling you guys now? Pizza Planeteers.
Pizza Planeteers.
We're going with Pizza Planeteers. So hopefully, you Pizza Planeteers enjoyed that. It being longer after last month's kind of a short one, but we will be back next month.
And I'll be back when we do the food one.
Okay.
Ooh, the food tasting, yeah.
Actually, that would help with the grocery bill too, because we'll have to split the grocery bill for that.
That's probably not as interesting now.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, we gotta make a better sale for him.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got. So,
Tony Zinich, thank you for being here.
oh
Absolutely.
yeah, we should totally
It was a
let you
joy.
plug yourself.
Plug myself. Oh dear.
He's Tony Zinich on Spotify. Go follow him.
Yep.
That's Tony Zinich.
That's right. Hopefully, I have some new music coming out here this year.
And you can also find like musical collaborations that all three of us have worked on Spotify at Idiot Box Collective.
Yes.
His scores are available at Idiot Box Films on YouTube.
Yes.
You can watch Where the Color Comes From, which he scored, as well as Code of the Transient, which he scored, both short films that Ben and I also worked on.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for plugging that for me.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's all I got.
You're welcome. Well, with all that being said, follow us on social media too. We're on TikTok now. Everything is at Pizza Planet Podcast.
So remember, guys,
Keep it an O for onward
because adventure is out there.
to
Infinity.
And beyond. Bye-bye now.
Oh, that's from
Toy Story 3, I think.
Oh,
At the end, Barbie's like, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye now.
You should just keep doing that.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Well, goodbye now. Bye-bye. Are they gone?